Warm welcome from the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, a place of historical importance. This is where, after the end of Second World War, the likes of Hermann Göring, Karl Dönitz, Joachim von Ribbentrop and co. were tried, some sentenced to death, some got prison sentences differing in ranges. Amazing how this place still stands, and up until recently it was used as a courtroom, courtroom 600, which is where they were all tried. And look at the stone here; it still looks magnificent. Probably lots of maintenance done to this over the years because it's a working building. So I just want to see the outside of this before I go inside. It's open most days, 9 till 4, closed on Tuesdays. Well, this is where the Allies got together to try the Nazis. Some escaped justice, some were tried here, but let's make our way inside. Let's buy a ticket and get ourselves inside. This is the actual courtroom where the Nuremberg trials occurred. Now this looks slightly different to what it did at the time of the trials, because this has been used as a courtroom up until recent years. The list of defendants includes Martin Bormann, who was successor to Rudolf Hess as Nazi party secretary, and he was sentenced to death in absentia because he was never found. Karl Dönitz sentenced to 10 years. Hans Frank, who was a Reich law leader, sentenced to death. Wilhelm Frick, also sentenced to death, Hitler's Minister of the Interior. Hans Fritsch, he was acquitted, he was a radio commentator. Walter Funk, life imprisonment, Minister of Economics, but he was released because of ill health. Hermann Göring, Reichsmarshal, sentenced to death, but he committed suicide shortly before the scheduled execution. Rudolf Hess, life imprisonment, he was a deputy Führer until he flew through Scotland in 1941. Alfred Jodl, sentenced to death. Ernst Kaltenbrunner, he was an SS leader, he was also sentenced to death. Wilhelm Keitel, also sentenced to death. Gustav Krupp von Bohlen-Halbach, he's an industrialist, there was no decision on him. Robert Ley, also no decision, head of DAF, German Labour Front, he died by suicide. Konstantin von Neurath, Minister of Foreign Affairs, 15 years. Franz von Papen, Chancellor of Germany, 1932, and he was also Vice-Chancellor under Adolf Hitler in 33-34, acquitted. Erich Rieder, life imprisonment, Commander-in-Chief of the Kriegsmarine. Joachim von Ribbentrop, he was an ambassador and also Minister of Foreign Affairs, sentenced to death. Alfred Rosenberg, he was a racial theory ideologist, later Minister of the Eastern Occupied Territories, sentenced to death. Fritz Saukel, Gauleiter of Thuringia, sentenced to death. Dr. Helmar Schacht, acquitted, and he was a banker and economist. Balder von Schirach, sentenced to 20 years. Arthur Seyss-Inquart, also sentenced to death. He was a key in the Anschluss where Austria got taken over. Albert Speer, he was an architect and also Minister of Armaments, sentenced to 20 years. Julius Streicher, he was also sentenced to death, and he was a publisher of a weekly newspaper, Der Stürmer. Just come outside of the courtroom and the exhibition, and this is a used building. That's why it's maintained, and there used to be cases heard in courtroom 600 until recently, and it is a very, very good exhibition in there. Nicely done. The history of the Nuremberg trials is available there to read and take in. And if you've seen the film Nuremberg, it was a mini series, actually, I think a 2-part series. That's worth seeing to get some idea of the Nuremberg trials. And this place, surprisingly, after the end of World War II, was pretty much still intact. They only had to do minor renovations really to get this in working order, and use the courtroom where the likes of Hermann Göring and co were prosecuted, some sentenced to death, some imprisoned for a number of years. Amazing. If ever you are down in Nuremberg, do come and see this. It is of its historical importance. A ticket only costs €750, and you get to see Courtroom 600 as well as the exhibition, which is on the 3rd floor. The courtroom's on the 2nd floor. So from the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, it's goodbye.